Hey, we are live. Hey, you guys, it's Lisa Alexander, Executive Director of Stand Up Survivor. Come on in here. I'm excited about our conversation tonight. This is definitely one that you do not want to miss. I have an amazing guest with me. So I'm going to do some housekeeping real quick, Tasha, before I introduce you. I want to make sure that I'm able to share this to some of our other groups. So give me just 1 second. I am super excited. Let somebody know that we are live and make sure that you share this with someone because we're going to save some lives tonight. Tasha, what do you say?
I say yes.
I
Most
know, I know,
definitely.
I know you're ready.
Yes.
You're ready. Hey, you guys. So, hey, when you pop in, let us know where you're tuning in from. We're super excited that you're joining us tonight. I have an amazing guest, Tasha Ray. Hey, Tasha.
Hi.
Hey, she is one of the co-authors of My Survivor Story, and we're going to put that information up. You want to show them the book real quick so they can make sure they grab it? Hey. Yes, and she's an advocate. She's a survivor. She's an author. She is also a survivor of domestic violence during her college years. So listen, okay? Hey, from Ohio, someone in your life needs to watch this live, right? Someone that you love or know. Are you a parent of a high school or college student? Are you one yourself? Are you thinking about? I mean, we need to have this conversation. So, Tasha, thank you for joining me. We're going to dive right in because
Okay.
we got some stuff to talk about. Hey, Kevin from San Diego. All right. So we are excited to get this conversation started. So, Tasha, please introduce yourself.
Okay, well, hi everyone. I hope you're having a beautiful night. I'm Tasha Ray and I'm 24. I live in Oregon and I'm an advocate, I'm a survivor. I've worked in the medical field. I have a degree in psychology and I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. I'm so okay with the psychology. I didn't even know that. I learn something new every day. Well, that makes a lot of sense because we're going to talk about something really important tonight and you're really passionate about. But I want to start with where you came from, where it all started. So let's talk about, hey, Paige, let's talk about how when you met your abuser, the person
Yes.
who would become your abuser, right? Because when he walked in the door, he didn't look like one. So tell us about that.
Yeah, no, this is so important because, when I met him, I had kind of grown up around him. I had known of him in middle school and high school, and I got really close to him when I was 16. And he was really charismatic. He loved sports, got good grades, was friends with my friends. So, right off the bat, I felt comfortable around this person that you wouldn't expect, is an abuser. But more often than not, that's how it happens, right? We don't happen right off the bat where they're abusing you right away. And so I'd become really close with this person and friends, and I felt a connection like right away.
So did you guys date right away or how long did it take till you started dating?
Yeah, so we were friends for like really close friends for probably like a year-ish or so. And slowly over that time, he had started like flirting with me and buying me snacks and like leaving notes on my car, like little things like that. And I didn't start dating him until senior year of high school.
Okay. And during this time when he was kind of courting you, trying to get to know you, buying you things, did you notice any red flags at that time? So I want to look at the timeline here. So 15, and then you started dating when you were a senior. So did you notice any flags at that time?
Yeah, so now I would say yes, but back then I totally had rose-colored glasses, like I was just running through and there was so many red flags. But I think sometimes we don't realize, especially, when I was in high school, I hadn't had any serious relationships before then, but things kind of happened quickly, I guess, and they happen more quickly than you're necessarily comfortable with, but you don't really understand that that's what's happening. And they, for him, like he would talk about everything that I would talk about and would every like I had he liked. And so it was like this really off the bat, like, oh my gosh, this person understands me and gets me and knows me. But it was almost too much so where it became, oh, I was hanging out with him all the time and I would cancel on my friends. And, they really try to make it a point where they're your only point of like, you know?
Yeah.
That makes
It
sense.
sounded like a lot of love bombing was happening in the mirroring. He liked what you liked. He loved what you okay. And then I also want to make a point to reiterate what you said about isolation in a way. Like, hey, let's just spend time together, canceling plans with friends. If you are a parent, and I think this is really important. So I'm gonna skip to this question really quickly. Um, you grew up in a great home. I know in your chapter in the book, you talk about your amazing parents, you know, and your family and your brother. I mean, you talk about this amazing thing. So how do you think that even happened? Because people always think that there's this type of person who gets in these type of relationships.
I love this. This is so incredibly important too because I heard this a lot, and it can really happen to anyone. It doesn't matter your background or how you grew up because growing up, I necessarily wasn't prepared for that. We weren't taught about that in schools. And, I absolutely love my parents to death, but I hadn't, they taught me that most people are good and to trust most people and, to have a better outlook that people can change. And so I never really understood that there's people out there who purposely want to manipulate you or look at you as someone that they can hurt or that they can harm. And so I just think that's incredibly important to realize that there's so many signs that we don't necessarily think of. And that's what really happened to me. I didn't have an outlook of that.
And I think it's really important when you talk about that, not being prepared for this, right? And so we prepare our children for life and for jobs and for education, but we're not having these critical conversations. They're uncomfortable, but they're so important to have. And, again, my parents have been married 54 years, amazing people. I didn't see abuse growing up in the home, yet I ended up in an abusive marriage. And so I think one of the key takeaways is to prepare your child. And that's the education part. Hey, this is what a healthy relationship looks like. This is what it doesn't, right? And I think another thing, you talked about was him pulling you away, like, hey, spend more time with me. So are you noticing that your child is not spending as much time as they used to with their friends or with the family and doing things like that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, 100%. And I'd even notice it too with like friend groups. So they plant these little seeds where they'll be like, oh, I don't know if that's really necessarily a good friend to hang around. And then, or I don't know if you should go to this club or this activity or, so they do these little things to act like they have care for you. But in reality, it's to make you pull away to be more with them. That's a really important one, especially in high school too. And in college.
Yeah. And so you met in high school. This is senior year. And so we have, I have kids that are getting to this age and I'm like, I need to make sure that they're educated to what this looks like. So senior year. So how does it turn? When does it start to become abusive?
Yeah. So, there was little things along the way that I didn't understand but love bombing is that that's how it starts. And then during the summertime was when I started noticing signs because we were going off to college. And one of the biggest signs that I started to notice was their actions and their words didn't match. And they're really good at future promising or telling you the words that they think you want to hear, but turning around and doing the opposite. So it kind of keeps you in this hook or in this cycle of, but they're telling me everything I want to hear. Like they're giving me gifts and they're being so sweet with me. So, I started to notice that he would lie about little things, but, I didn't take it necessarily to heart because I was like, oh, but he's such a good person, but he's shown me all these things. Or he would make comments here and there that were small but like really hurtful towards me, or he would put seeds of doubt in my brain like, oh, I don't know if you're necessarily that's a good job for you or a good school or a good thing that you could do, or I don't know if this is a good friend to hang out with. So I started noticing it during that summer before I left for college. But yeah.
And I think it's so important because people always ask, and we're going to get into that in a second, like the why you didn't leave question. But what you're saying is something really subtle, right? Oh, well, he started saying this about me. Well, he started mentioning that. And so I start to second guess myself and this and that. So it's this slow chipping away of who you are. Because, even reading your chapter, I'm like, she knows exactly who she is as a young woman. And then you meet this person, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe I need to change a little bit. And slowly but surely we start that change process.
Exactly. That's how they reel you in and they hook you in. And then it progressively got worse. And I know it started to get worse when I left for college because then my parents weren't in the picture. My friends from home were in the picture. And so it really created this perfect sort of recipe for him to, I guess manipulate me and sort of isolate me. And at this point, we were long distance. However, I didn't have that voice of my family or my friends to support me. And so it got progressively worse during
That
that
is
time.
so huge. I just kind of want to sit there for a second, because although we send our kids off to college and to school and we're like, go travel the world and be great and grow, they need that steady voice of solidarity in your ear, because now he's like, oh, this is perfect. She doesn't have her friends. She doesn't have her family speaking to her. Now my voice is what she hears.
100%. I think that's so important. And, you know, especially when you're young and you're going off, like, I don't know. Yeah, it's just like you're on your own for the first time, or even in high school, you know, you think, oh, I want to grow up and I want to be a grown up. But yeah, from then on, it got progressively worse. And I noticed that he became more possessive, more jealous. And during that time, you think, oh, it's because he cares for me, or, you know, he's looking out for me, or he loves me so much, but it's not healthy. You know, it like never is. You should be independent, but together at the same time. And, you know, especially nowadays with the younger generations, like location, you know, like he'd want to have my location on everything. He'd want to even check your location on your Snapchat. And there's so many things on social media that they can track you and look at things now. Like, especially when I was in college, like he'd look at all my guy friends and who I was following on social media. And then, you know, so it was just possessive and controlling. And then there's so many red flags I can talk about.
Well, and that's like not normal behavior, you know?
No.
And I think, see, the thing about domestic violence, you know, Tasha, you and I, we've experienced it, right? And so we have to go through the healing process and the restoration process and figuring out who we are all over again. But a lot of, as an advocate, what we really want to do is tell you how you don't have to be a part of this, we don't want to have to help you heal if we can prevent it. And that's why this conversation is so important. And I really hope that you guys share it and get it into the hands of these college students and parents who have college kids who are thinking they're doing just fine. They're in this great relationship, but maybe there's a conversation that you can have with your child where you maybe be able to get additional answers. So the possessiveness started. So when did it actually become physical?
Yeah, so I was sort of visiting him on the weekends because we were doing long distance during this time before I'd moved closer to him. And, you know, this is when I started seeing signs of like angry and bursts of rage. And I was very confused at that time because I hadn't really come to terms or understood who he truly was, because he had shown me this ideal version of him. And, you know, so I would see these moments of fear or intimidation. So this is leading up until it gets physical. I think this is how maybe the cycle happened, or it happened for me. And, you know, just like even intimidating you with threats, right? Like he would be like, if you don't do this, I'm going to do this. Or just like being loud or angry or putting you up against a corner, or like different things that can be before the physical, but it got really physical.
And I mean, it is kind of still physical in a way. Like I think that we take it out of, well, they didn't actually put their hands on me, but they're punching walls, they're pushing, they're, you know, headbutting, they're chest bumping. Yeah, all of that is a part of it. So hey, you guys, thanks for tuning in. If you're joining us, let us know where you're tuning in from. Hey, from Canada. We're talking to Tasha Ray. She's a survivor, an advocate, and an author of, you have your book there. Let's see it. My Survivor Story. It is for sale on Amazon. And she's talking about her relationship. She met her abuser when she was in high school, started dating in 12th grade. I'm just catching y'all up if y'all just jumped in. And hey, Elizabeth. And so she's just talking a little bit about that. And so, I really want to emphasize those things are not normal either, right? The chest butting, the pushing, the threatening, if you do this, I won't do this, right? And so I remember there was a point when you talk about in your chapter how you moved to be closer because it started to get too stressful. And I just want to say, I'm going to let you tell that part, but I just want to say, parents, are you noticing that your child is making a significant change in their life and you're wondering why? So go ahead, Tasha.
Yeah, this is such a good thing for parents to look out for too, because, you know, when I first went off to college, I've always been this like go-getter and focusing on school and myself and my career. And I quickly went from being independent to being completely codependent in such a short span of time. So that is such a good sign to look out for too. I forgot. Hold on. I forgot the question.
No, but I was just asking, like, as it progressed, how did it become physical at that point? Yeah.
Yes. So during this time, I, like, you know, through those first few months, he made it really easy for me to question myself. And I never really done that before. And so I was questioning myself. I was wondering if this is long distance, well, maybe if I move closer, it will be better. It'll be like when we first started, and they keep you on this future promising, future faking thing, which I talked about earlier. They tell you what you want to hear. And so I decided to move closer to him during this point because there'd been so many issues that I figured, oh, if we're together, and we're going to college, then it'd be easier. And that was the like recipe for disaster because I moved on the same street as him. And that's when he had access to me at any point that he wanted. And that's when it became really physical. So he was almost living with me. He wasn't, but he acted as if he was. And yeah.
So it's really interesting that I have to touch on this because there was a critical point in your life where you made a critical decision, right? And you weren't hearing the voice of your family and friends, your support system. You weren't hearing them. You're away at college, and he's like, we need to be together. Like, there's too many issues with us being long distance. So you moved closer. And something you said I thought that was really important. They started to make you questioning yourself. You're like, do I know how to do anything right? Can I fold laundry? Can I wash dishes? Can I make good decisions? Can I do anything? And that is a really key point of an abuser. Of what they do is they make you start to question yourself. It's really, really important to recognize that. And then Tasha, true, we have to learn how to trust ourselves again.
Yes.
Because we doubt ourselves to be able to do literally anything.
Yes, 100%. And I found myself like over explaining myself all the time and questioning like even my mental health. Like they make you literally think you're crazy, And so
yes, they do. And it's so frustrating because we're not. But then by the time you get to a survivor, they literally have us feeling like we're going to lose our mind. Well, I think I said that I couldn't, but I used to be able to do it, but now maybe I can't do it anymore. And it's really, because we're on the other side of it, we can look at it and say, they literally had us going crazy. But when we're in it, you literally feel crazy. Like I really felt like I was going to lose my mind. Like I knew, like I was like, I'm going to lose my mind. Like I can't do anything right. I can't trust myself, and it's a devastating system. So when you're dealing with survivors, hi, Jamie Lynn, when you're dealing with the survivor, and they're maybe talking fast or forgetful and you feel like, well, are you telling the truth or are you not? What really happened? They have us going crazy and not trusting our own judgment. So sorry, Tasha, but yeah, I wanted to say that.
No, 100%. I just wanted to say something else on that because that's a really big thing that, sorry, my throat, took me a long time to heal because and I don't mean it in a bad way, but I was like brainwashed in a way because, I went from so independent and focusing on these things to, I couldn't even like leave my room at moments of my time. I was scared to even walk outside. And they do this really thing where they'll manipulate you. Like my abuser would be like, oh, well, that never happened. Or what are you talking about, when it really did? And so they plant these really big seeds of self-doubt and fear into you. And I was just living in fear and self-doubt. And, they never validated anything.
I'm really glad you said that because they will say, no, that didn't happen. The whole gaslighting, that didn't happen. What are you talking about? But you're sitting there like, I know that just happened. I was here. And then you're like, well, you know what? Maybe that didn't happen. Maybe I'm exaggerating it in my head. And so, and that leads me to my next question about like, people always ask, well, why didn't you just leave? But if you were listening from the beginning, you will hear how Tasha talked about, well, I knew him when I was 15. And then we started dating as a senior. Then we were dating in college and I moved back home to be with him. There's a whole entire process that happens, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, Victoria, co-author. It doesn't just happen. It doesn't just happen overnight. And I think that's something that people could show survivors grace with, right?
100%.
Yeah. Like, if you could just leave, you would just leave, and if we could just leave, we'd have been the first person running the door. You don't have to tell us twice.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, but you said something that I think was so powerful that I think would resonate with a lot of survivors. You didn't trust yourself at all. Like you're like, I didn't even leave my room, or I didn't go outside, because you really believe the things that he said.
Yeah, this is such a good question too, because, and I know it comes from, that's people's instant reaction. And I heard this a lot from people because they're like, wow, it was horrible. Like, why didn't you leave? And, on top of that, I tried to leave. Like, I can't even tell you how many times I tried to leave. Like,
and it's so interesting. So before you answer the question, I want to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
So I don't want people to just think survivors were just kind of sitting around just waiting for someone to climb through the window in a fire truck and rescue us. Do you know average time is 7 times that a survivor will leave before they go for good? Do you know how difficult it is for a survivor to leave, number one, but then to stay gone when all the cards are stacked against them? I mean, financially, it's stacked against them. And the court system is stacked against them. Safety-wise, it's stacked against them. So there's so many reasons that we just don't pick up our stuff and run out the door. And I love that you said that, Tasha. I tried to leave many times, you know, but I also want to say one of the main reasons that we go back is because they have brainwashed us. And I love that you use that word because I think it's so accurate to believe that they're the best we're ever going to have. No one else will want us. They were right about us. There's so many reasons, but those are some of them.
Yeah. So okay, I got so wrapped up in it.
So the question is, so people ask, why didn't you just leave, right? And so let's go back to the part of when it initially got physical. And at that point when it got physical, why didn't you just leave?
Oh, this one's so good. Okay. So for me, and I love that we talk about a process because, it was gradual over time for me. And gosh, there's so many things. So my abuser specifically liked to use threats a lot. And he had these specific tactics that would keep me there. And he was really good at it and planned it out most of the time, or he's always one step ahead of me. And so, there was moments like that where that would happen, but he would like take my phone or my keys or my wallet and leave so I couldn't get help. Or he would be like, okay, if you tell someone, I'm going to text your family or your friends like really bad things, or I'm going to post things about you online. And so he kept these little like really big things of fear above me. And sometimes he did follow through with those threats. And so they keep you in such a stuck fear-based mindset. And at that time too, most likely when they get to that point, like financially too, I was in college and I couldn't necessarily afford a lot. And all my friends at that point weren't around because he had isolated me. And I love my family to death, but even at that point, I was in a whole other like city, but from them. And so it's just, they're so good at the process and getting you to that point. And I just think people don't understand, how much you have to build up yourself and the threats that they give you every day. And I was fearful, of my life. And so I think another point too is, at least in the mindset that I was at the time, I was like, oh, I'll take this instead of him hurting or affecting my family or my loved ones.
But you were afraid that he was going to hurt your family or friends. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's that fear tactic too, and people should think about that too, because we're not just afraid for ourselves. We're afraid for ourselves, our children, our family. Because oftentimes, all you have to do is turn on the TV, and you know that abusers do not care who they take out in the process, and we carry that weight as survivors. So when you talk about the physical abuse, can you just talk a little? I mean, you talk about it a little bit more in your book, but could you tell them a little bit about what that looked like in your journey?
Oh, 100%. Is it okay if I maybe? Okay. So for me, at first it started with like intimidation and fear. Like he would throw my phone, he'd break my furniture, he'd yell at me, do different things like that. And then it became really physical, and threatened my life and tried to take my life many times. And, for me, I experienced abuse of every form possible. And I think that's another thing people maybe don't realize is, even if we call it domestic violence, really it's a whole spectrum of abuse that occurs and happens. And it's like almost in every area. But yeah, it was really difficult and really took a toll physically, mentally. I mean, the mental and emotional is so difficult on top of, the physical that happens.
And so what was your breaking point? What was your point where you said, I cannot take anymore? Because I know you talk about it in the chapter, just about how significant the physical abuse got, and it took a toll on your physical health and your physical health, your mental health. So what was your breaking point when you said, I have got to get out of here?
Yeah. And, I just want to mention before I talk about my breaking point is it took me so many times. There was nights where I'd pack my bag and I'm like, I'm leaving. And then he would come and stop me. Or, I had to plan mine because of how strategic my abuser was. He was like really one step ahead of me, like had all these things planned out. And so I had to plan mine. And I just remember, this one specific night too, where he tried to kill me, like take my life, and he was almost successful. And I just remember that moment of like, okay, am I going to let this person take me, or am I going to save myself and put love into myself and know my worth and know that I'm here for a reason? And, when I get out, I'm going to help people. But I just remember I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's either, me like not being here anymore or me picking myself. And at that point, I didn't care if I lost everything and anything, because like living in your worth and who you are and who you're meant to be is worth way more than that. And I had many moments like that too, but it really took me, I had to decide and I had to make that decision and stick to it. And it's so hard because you waver and, there's so many factors involved with that. But, and I could talk about that too, but yeah, it took me a year to plan.
I'm really glad you said that. I think that when the wavering part is really serious. And I think, of course, as advocates, we'll say a survivor's not going to lead until they're ready. I could have went to Tasha's apartment and said, Tasha, let's go right now. There's gas in the car. But Tasha, until Tasha was ready, Tasha wasn't going to leave. And Tasha, you talk about that you were ready to leave at that point and that you made that decision. So I'm gonna divert it real quick. So if you have someone listening right now, right, and who's maybe at the verge of contemplating, I don't think I can do this anymore. But I love what you said. First of all, you had a plan. Because let's not put it past abusers. They abuse for reasons strategically. Hey, you guys, if you're popping in talking to Tasha Ray, I'm putting all her contact information online as well. But let us know where you're tuning in from. So when you talk about that, what would you say to a survivor maybe who's listening right now that it may be at that stage where they're like, I think I can do this?
Oh my gosh. So first, I want to say I don't know you, but I love you. And like you are so worthy and so capable and so strong. No matter if nobody else tells you that or you haven't been told that, I promise you, like it took me every ounce of energy when I didn't have energy left. But it's like you are worth so much more than what they've told you. You are so worthy. You're here for a reason. You're meant to be here. You can do so many beautiful things, and like your life is worthy for living, breathing, and existing. And for me, I had no one in my life when I decided to leave. Well, I had gotten friends and whatnot, but it took me one person to tell me, you know what, I believe you and I support you. And it's like, I know that it can feel lonely and it feels like people may not believe you because they've brainwashed you, but I promise you there's good people out there and there's support and there's resources. And I know there's going to be moments where you're going to waver and you're going to think, oh, maybe I should go back or this and that. But you are so beautiful and so strong. And like, just think about like I don't know, you can, you can make it through it.
I believe you. That was so good. That was really good. And people giving you hearts and saying thank you because it's so true. And I think, Tasha, we can smile and we can be on the other side. But I promise you, if you saw us some years ago, we looked nothing like this. My cheeks was not this rosy and that smile was not there. Why? Because we've been to hell. And we can tell you that you can fight your way back to reality. And everything that like Tasha just said, I can guarantee you, Tasha didn't feel that a few years ago. She fought for those feelings. And so it doesn't come out of the sky. This is something that we know that you can do and experience and be. We have that hope for you. Like I like to tell survivors, they said, well, they said that I could never. And I said, well, what if they lied? What if I told you that they lied? What if I told you that you could survive, that you could thrive, that you could heal, that you could raise your children by yourself, that like Tasha said, you are worthy and that you are loved? What if we told you that? Would you believe us? Because often it's so hard for us to believe the positives, but we believe that we were ugly and that we were stupid and that we were fat and that we were worthless. So let's counteract some of those lies with the truth. And Tasha, you just did an amazing job of that. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. It's just like I love that you mentioned about, we weren't always like this. And it's so true. It took me a long time. And even now, like I still have my moments, and there's of course going to be hard moments. And we struggle with, trust and our intuition and loving ourselves again. But like, yeah, I want to mention that too. Like, we're all human and we have our moments, and it doesn't mean that it's not possible, because it's 100% possible, you know?
Yeah, and I love that. And I'm going to ask you a little bit later too about your healing process and what that looked like. Tanya, let me tell you something, okay? I talk about this at our healing retreat. You tell yourself that every day, right? If you need to
Mhm.
go back and replay what Tasha said in those couple seconds, I promise you, you continue to tell yourself that every day, because what the abuser did was the exact opposite. They beat us down every day. And so that became the fiber of our being, correct? And so you have to slowly get that out of you. Slowly get it out of you until you truly believe who you are. And I know we talk about it a little bit, Tasha, but like learning who you are all over again.
100%. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, 2 years ago, so it's been 2 years since I left. 2 years ago, I couldn't tell you what my favorite food was, like my favorite color. I felt like a shell, and it took me a long time, and I still have moments, and so like, yeah, it's just so possible. But
Thank you for saying that, because she said 2 years ago she was like a shell of herself, and now you guys see this glowing woman, this happy woman, but you're seeing a survivor who chose to survive and thrive. So I want to ask you a couple of questions. I know there were some key people in your life that helped you escape,
mhm.
that really spoke life into you, right? So can you want to share about that for a second?
Yeah, so if you're listening to and you know somebody who's going through this, I just want to tell you it took me one person, like literally just one person to say that they believed me. And that was a good grounding anchor into reality of, okay, so these lies that my abuser is telling me that no one's going to believe me, you'll be worthless without me, just like shattered because just one person telling me that, this isn't healthy, you deserve better, I'm going to help you and I'm going to support you and I hear you. Like that in itself can be so valuable and so monumental to somebody. But for me, I didn't have any friends. So at the moment that I decided I was going to start to plan, I had to put myself out there in some way. So I just, if it was like a study group or something that I could get away for a bit, I did that and I became close with basically one person. And I would tell her little things here and there. Obviously I wasn't ready to accept what was necessarily happening to me or to really process it, but I did feel comfortable in letting her know certain things when it was safe, obviously, and in ways of like in person, like I wouldn't text it or I wouldn't, it's just in a way that he couldn't find it, obviously, for your own safety and what's best for you. And so during that moment, like she told me that like you can help support me, like, I'll come pick you up. Like you can eventually I lived with her for 2 months, and so she was really just that grounding ear and emotion for me to understand that like she was like, you're not crazy, you don't deserve this. This isn't healthy. She's like, if he ever does that to you, like leave. But she didn't know that it'd been going on this whole time.
I love that you talk about it was one person who literally helped to bring you out. And I love that you acknowledge, hey, if you're listening, you could be that one person for someone else. You absolutely can be that one person for someone else. We don't necessarily need a whole group of people to help pull us out of something that we can't see our own way out of. And I think it's important to recognize that we don't necessarily see it. We can't see it because we're in it. Like they say, hindsight is 2020. We can look back and say, I cannot believe I went through that. But when we're in it, understand, if you're looking at a survivor who's struggling to leave or escape, just understand they're not seeing what you see. I always say this when I train like people who want to help survivors. I'm like, the abuser's voice is louder than yours. You can
Yep.
tell them anything you want, but all they can hear and replay is what their abuser has said. And so understand that you just have to keep going and don't give up on them. I want to ask you a really important question for parents. What can parents look out for with their college students? What did your parents maybe not see? What questions did they not ask? And I think about my own parents. Poor my mom. I remember my mom said, "Is he hitting you?" And I said, "Of course not. Why would you ask?" And I just acted so dramatic, thinking, "How did she know?" So what questions can parents ask their college age high school students to get the answers?
This is so good. I definitely have notes about this too, but this is so important. I There's so many, but I'll just start talking about them. But for me, I think on the outside looking in, there was a drastic change quickly. I would say, getting serious with somebody quickly, them pulling away from you, canceling plans last minute, especially from friends, not telling you as much, walking on eggshells even around you, as if like, you ask them questions and they will be kind of short with it or won't answer it. I have a list because it's so important.
Please use your list, because education and prevention is key. That is what we're all about. So if you have some more, please let parents know how they can help their children. Because the ages of 16 and 24, parents, hear me, are the biggest ages for those in domestic violence relationships, 16 to 24. So yes, keep going, Tasha.
Yeah. Okay. So I would say like eggshells is really important. Being isolated. Okay, hold on. Sorry. Okay. So I know there's like, I guess looking from the outside, if you were a parent, it'd be like they start pulling away from you. They start pulling away from things that they said they once loved. They start acting different. They may even defend their abuser. Like I would defend my abuser all the time. I would be like, oh no, it's fine, it's whatnot. And then also when my abuser was around my family, my mom even mentioned this to me. She was like, you would ask me not to say certain things. And I was like, oh, that's a weird thing. Like, why would you ask me to not mention certain things? But it was totally because when she would, then I would get obviously punished for certain things. There's so many. It's just like also when they, sorry.
No, those are really good. No, you have another one. Keep going.
Okay. Just like, I guess this is for them, but like jealousy or crossing boundaries. There's so many, but yeah, I guess if you were a parent, it's, noticing that drastic change in them too. Like I was so independent and then I went from, wanting to be with this person all the time, or, hiding things, or noticing eggshells and, yeah, those are like the
So do you think that if your parents asked you about your relationship, if they said, hey, something going on in this, why did you leave college and come back home with what? Do you think if they asked, is he hitting you? Is he hurting you? Do you think that you would have told them the truth?
See, and that's the thing, is because, I think there was times where they wanted to ask, but I would get defensive. And I think it's because I didn't want to accept it, because accepting it was accepting that those things were happening to me. And I know it's totally a coping mechanism that our brain does to us, because we're like, no, it's fine. Like, he's not doing that, and I think it's also because I had some shame, that I had to work on, because it was shameful for me to feel that and to tell people that was really happening.
That's really good. That's really good. And I think someone said in the comments too, they didn't say anything because they were trying to protect maybe their parent from the pain, Yeah. And you made a really good point, like the shame, but shame is not yours to carry. It's just not, it's the abusers to carry. But as survivors, they don't carry any shame. They don't carry shame for what they're doing. They may apologize, but they don't feel bad about it because they do it again. So we carry a shame that's not ours to carry. And that shame keeps us silent, right? Because we don't want to hurt our parents. And then I love that you talk about acknowledging it. If we acknowledge that, yeah, this is happening, we have to first acknowledge it to ourselves, and it's coming out of our mouth. And we're like, and I remember not saying anything too, because I loved my husband and I wasn't going to leave him. Right. And so, I just didn't want to say anything, because what are you going to say? Tasha's going to be, we need to leave. Come on, let's go. Let me help. But I wasn't ready to do that. And I didn't want you to treat him differently. I didn't want you to talk to him differently. So I stayed silent. And so that was really good. That's true. Also, some family, parents, and friends simply don't believe you, or so why say it again and get further abused? It is definitely re-abused when you disclose to someone and they don't believe or support you.
So I would love to talk about that, because I did experience a lot of people who didn't believe me. And I want to talk about, or I guess I could relate to that a lot, because, I had a perfect image on the outside to the outside world, perfect vacation photos and cute couple photos. And so on the outside, I tried to make it look like, oh, everything's fine. This is beautiful, and so I had a lot of people who were like, what? No way, because I hid it so well, and so I just relate to you so much. But I promise you, there is people who will believe you. I believe you.
Exactly. And I always say, like, those aren't your people. If you want to tell your story, you want to share it with someone, and they don't believe you, those are not your people. I don't care who it is, your mama, your cousins, it doesn't matter. If they don't believe you, you need someone to believe you. And if you're that person who's hearing someone else, believe them. Believe survivors first. right? And statistically speaking, it's the numbers are so low for people who false report. It's just so low, it's not even worth, honestly, the conversation to delve into it, because, well, what if they're lying? Right. Really believe survivors immediately the first time. Okay, yeah, that I understand. And cultural differences are really important too, especially when you deal with I was at this event the other day, and one of the professors speaking, he said he grew up in a Hispanic family. And he's like, I literally could have had the whole machismo thing where he said, but I chose differently. And so it really, culture does play a part in it. Especially, even in Black families, like, well, I dealt with it. My grandmother dealt with it. My great grandmother dealt with it. Why does it matter now? And so I'm so proud of you as you talk. I don't know. I can't see your name here, but I'm really proud of you for still using your voice, even though the cultural difference. I have another question for you. You talked about healing. What does healing look like for you? Because you're sitting here, Tasha, you're smiling, you have a website, you have your Instagram, you're advocating, you're sharing your story. But if they read your chapter, they'd be like, is this the same person who was sitting in front of us the other day? And I'm going to put the Amazon link for this author up right now. But tell us, what does your healing look like?
I absolutely love this. And this is so important to talk about, because it's like, I'm all done up and like, oh, I look happy and, everything's whatever. But oof, healing is not linear, first off. It's okay to have bad days. I still have bad days. And, my healing journey was super up and down. I'd go through moments where one day I would feel like anything's possible. And the next day I would just be, filled with anger and frustration. And I think one of the hardest parts in my healing journey was the after effects, because especially just, physically, emotionally, mentally, your body went through hell, and mine went through hell for 4.5 years. And so I didn't know what it felt like to live without abuse. And, my nervous system, like I was losing handfuls of hair. I lost like 20 pounds. I was having, nightmares. I couldn't sleep. I was scared to walk outside. And then I went through, just so many issues, trusting yourself and accepting, and processing what really happened to you and what really went on. And I think one of the hardest things for me to realize during that moment was, this was kind of like my first serious relationship. And so it was hard to be like, this person never loved you. Like, it's not love. They wanted to control, manipulate, and abuse you. And they did that on purpose. That was a really hard thing to sit with and like realize that, I don't know. I just like, that was really hard for me.
I'm glad you said that. I'm really glad you said that, because that is probably one of the hardest things to accept. It's really hard to accept that, because you love this person, you gave your all to this person, and then realize they just intentionally hurt me. They caused me pain and shame, like all of these things. That's really hard to accept. But I think it's an important part of the healing process, because otherwise we're not making excuses for them. We're acknowledging what happened and what they did. And I want to kind of go back when you talk about your body's reaction after you got out of the abuse. I like to I'm very visual, so I'm always going to try to come up with a visual analogy. But what I like to use is, you guys ever put your groceries on the moving cart when you're at the register, and then starts backing up, and it's like everything just gets all weird. And I feel like it's like once you stop or you escape that abuse, and your body is just like, wait, what just happened? And all of a sudden it just, all of these feelings, your aches and your pains, and your body has to literally detox the pain and trauma that you were going through. Now, even if you didn't experience physical abuse, your body tensed when they walked in. You were shaking, you were afraid, you were looking over your shoulder, you were afraid to do things. And these are all physical body reactions. And so I always encourage, to have grace during this process. Are you still jumpy? Are you still afraid? Are you still looking over give yourself time? Imagine, Tasha, 4.5, you don't have to imagine, 4.5 years of physical trauma, emotional trauma, and so anyway, I just want to throw the grace. Give yourself some grace to healing process. Don't be so hard on yourself if you find yourself reacting and still feeling and still crying. Cry, girl, cry, it's okay. So Tasha, you talk about the emotional part of realizing that this person intentionally hurt me, right? How do you heal from that? What else did you do to heal?
I think, gosh, it's such a journey, because I went through so much therapy. But I think one of the biggest things, I love that you talk about compassion, because, after you go through abuse like that, we tend to abuse ourselves as in like, we tend to doubt ourselves or to gaslight ourselves or to be so hard on ourselves. And it's like, you just went through that or you're going through that. Like, you are so strong and so brave and so capable. Like, you deserve so much self-love and so much self-compassion and grace and understanding. And especially like, I had so many moments where my body would just crash. Like, I need to sleep for like 20 hours because like I go in freeze mode and my body's like, I can't function, and it's like the most powerful thing is, learning to love yourself. And I had to learn to love myself for the first time in years, and just like I talked about before, I didn't even know what food I liked or what I liked to do. And it was really just like having full self acceptance. Like, if I'm having a bad day, that's okay. We're human, we have bad days, and it's good to heal it to feel it to heal it is what I like to say.
That's really good. You said a couple of things. Number one, therapy was really great. Therapist, I'm a therapist. I get it. Go to therapy. It's wonderful. Therapy is not for everyone, but I will say I would encourage you to go to Trauma Informed or specifically someone who specializes in domestic violence because they understand it. It's really, really important. You talked about compassion, which is such a good word. I really love it. So we have so much forgiveness and grace and compassion for our abusers. We forgive them time and time again. But when it comes to ourselves, we give ourselves so much more, such a hard time. We don't want to forgive ourselves. How could I? Why didn't I? We don't want to give ourselves the same forgiveness, grace, and compassion that we gave the person who intentionally hurt us. So I love what you said. Give that to yourself because you're worthy and deserving of it. And I just wrote this down because, I take a lot of notes. But I love what you said about full self-acceptance. I'm having a bad day, and that's okay. Having a wonderful day, and that's okay. I'm up and down today, and that's okay. And being okay with that. If we think about the hell we live through or going through for some of you, right? And then you come out, you survive this thing. And like, even for our transitional home that we have, like we put survivors in there and I'm like, go to sleep for a week. We don't care what you do, but you need to rest because you can't just come to a full stop of living in fight and flight, freeze and fawn, and then go into, no. You gotta rest. You gotta take care of your body, and it's, I kind of describe it like, then you kind of learning to walk again and finding your footing again. And like you talked about, what do I like to do? Who am I? And that takes time. I want to encourage y'all that are listening. I'm taking Tasha Ray's line. Full self-acceptance of wherever you are in your journey. Let me see if I had another question for you. If you have any questions, please put them in the box real quick. We probably have about 5 more minutes before we jump off. I wanted to ask you, when you talk about Tasha Ray, when you talk about your focus, what are you really passionate about in this area?
So for me, just like it burns in my heart and my soul because, when I went through this, I felt so alone. I used to think, oh, there's not a single person out there who would understand this or family. We like to think that, but there's so many. But for me, it's like I had a hard time relating to anyone my age because I went through it at such a young age, through high school and through college. And so I feel so strongly towards those people, especially growing up, even, middle school, high school, and college, because like, a lot of survivors that I talked to were married or had children or had been in different phases of their life. And so it was just different from my experience. And it felt so validating, to watch things from younger people who'd been through it too, because it happens so often in colleges and high schools. And it's like, it just feels like it needs to be discussed. So I have such a place for that in my heart. And I truly hope to help in that area.
I love that. You are definitely in this moment. And I know that those who are going to watch the replay, hey, y'all, if you just jumped, hey, let us know where you're tuning in from. But I love that because young people 16 to 24, this is the number one area, right? For those who are experiencing domestic violence. So we need a young voice. And I told Tasha, I was married with kids. I was this older person. And she's like, I'm in college. I need someone who looks like me. I need someone to tell me what domestic violence is, to give me warning signs, to help prevent this thing. So I want to ask you, I love this question, but would you ever consider dating again after what you've been through? Because you've been out for 2 years, right? So tell me, would you ever consider it?
Yes. I love this question because it's so cute. It's like, when you go through healing, that it's like, oh, you get eventually, you'll experience that healthy love. And, I definitely would, but I've definitely had to take that time and space for yourself to heal. And, there isn't a time frame, and that's okay. But I
Did
feel
you
like now,
doubt? Like, did you doubt? Like, did you ever say, "I'm never getting in a relationship again,"
oh,
or
yeah. Oh my God. I went through all those phases. Like, I'm going to be single forever. I'm going to have dogs. I'm going to live alone. And that's okay. It's okay to go through different phases. It's okay to be alone. I love being alone, because I didn't have that freedom for so long that it just felt so liberating. And so, like, I learned to love myself and it felt so good. So it's okay. And I'm alone and I love being alone right now. But
you
yeah,
think
just take
that's
it at
really
your time. Your pace.
take your time. There's no time limit on healing. I love what Leanne said. She's like, yeah, one day, but I'm focusing on me right now. And that's really important. It's really, really important because one of the things we don't want to do is getting abusive relationship after abusive relationship. You mentioned earlier too, how you're like, I see red flags. Like,
Oh yeah, I can sniff it a mile away. It's like now, now, but I've spent so much time because I'm just focusing on me right now too. And I love that you say that, Leanne, because it's so important to give that love to yourself, and it's okay to be alone, and who cares? That's a good thing. But now after I've been through it, it's like I can smell it and see it a mile away. It's like this undeniable skill that I'm like, oh no, like right off the bat. And I so love that I have those skills now, and they're so important, especially, in this generation or younger dating too.
yeah, I love it. One thing you said earlier, and it kind of ties into right now, you said when you're with someone, you can be independent, but together at the same time. Right. And that's one thing that abusers strip away from you is your independence. That's their goal. I mean, I've met amazing survivors who in all walks of life, doctors, lawyers, teachers, all kinds of skills that they have. And then all of a sudden, they want to take that independence from you, so I love that. You can be independent, but still together in a healthy relationship. So Dr. Shore said, what are some of the red flags that you might see? Like, maybe considering dating or something. I'm not quite sure, but I know for myself, listen, when I started dating, I was like, wait, we're so disrespectful to the waitress. Next, you cussed your mama out. Next, it's like those things are really important. Or every previous relationship you've ever had, that something was wrong, like, and it was never you. Okay, go Tasha, you're up. Go.
Oh, there's so many. That is so important. Like, I love how you mentioned that, like how they treat other people, how they treat their friends, how they treat other women or whoever they are, however they treat them. You know, um, okay, I have a list. But like, being serious too fast or being a little bit, I wouldn't say possessive, but like needy or controlling or jealous really quickly off the bat. Making subtle jokes that aren't jokes, they're just like jabs at you. Crossing little boundaries that you have. If you say, like, you're on a date and you're like, no, this is fine. They're like, can I walk you to your car? And you're like, no, but they like insist, like not respecting those boundaries, even though they may seem little to you. Um, yeah, I just like,
Those are good. And it's really important post abuse that's, well, in life period, that we set boundaries, but especially post abuse, because we're learning who we are. We're coming into ourselves again. And so it's important that we set those boundaries. And it's so important that we require people to respect those boundaries. And if they don't, that there are consequences. So we do a whole little thing at our retreats about boundaries. So someone asked, how do you recognize if you're the abuser after having just healed or in the process of healing? I don't know if you want to rephrase that question or if that's exactly what you meant. So I'm going to attempt to answer it how you said, ask it. How do you recognize if you're the abuser after? So I hear this question in a different way sometimes. Well, my abuser tells me that I'm the narcissist, right? And so that's what they're going to do to try to confuse you. Next thing you know, you're Googling, am I a narcissist? Am I the abuser? The whole goal of that, if you are the abuser, you're not going to ask yourself if you're the abuser. That's just not, am I the abuser? You're just not, because they know what they're doing. So if you have to question yourself and ask yourself, I guarantee you're probably most likely not the abuser. And that's their goal, to make you feel confused about, yourself. I remember, I'm going to share this story real quick. I don't really know how relevant it is, but I remember my ex-husband who was beating me in the kitchen one time. That was one of his things, so he would put the kids on the counter and that's when he would go in. Right. And so one time I was close to the drawer and I grabbed a knife from the drawer and I stood with the knife. I don't know if you guys can see me, but it was like, like this, like there was, I didn't know what I was going to do with the knife, but it was in a way to try to protect myself. But I didn't know what I was doing. Of course, I like dropped it because I was like a chicken little. I But whatever. So anyway, so we go to court. We're in court, and and this was like years before. So we're in court, and we're in front of the judge, and he goes, "Your Honor, she pulled a knife out on me," and I'm thinking, well, and then the judge looks at me and he goes, "Did you pull a knife on him?" And I start crying and I'm hysterical and I'm looking just like a crazy. I'm just, yeah, but it was after he beat me up, and I was trying to. I was just, and I thought to myself, well, and that was one of those questions even that I asked myself, like, did but I didn't, But they do these things to make it. And by the way, I lost my court case. By the way, the court system sucked at that time, but it was one of those things where they kind of force you into thinking that something is wrong with you, or you could have done something to prevent the abuse or something like that. And that's just not the case. So if you have to ask yourself, you're not the abuser. Let me see. Any other questions? Tasha, I'm going to put up the, right quick. My Survivor Story. It is a co-authored book. There are 5 amazing authors in it. Victoria is on here. She's an author as well. You get additional details about her story. It is powerful. We have, married survivors, high school survivors, college survivors, just like Tasha. And it is on Amazon. It's only $20 on Amazon. Please go ahead and follow Tasha Ray. She's amazing. I'm super supportive, super encouraging, really motivating, and really wants you to heal, wants you to survive, and wants you to thrive. And so she's on Instagram at Tasha Ray with 2 E's, y'all, 2 E's. She also has a website. It's called TashaRay.com. I put the link for the book in the bottom, and I'm also going to add it at the end of this. But it is here. I don't know. That's probably not going to be really helpful, but it is on Amazon, but I also put it in the comments. Okay. And so thank y'all for joining us. Please make sure you're welcome. Please make sure that you share this with someone that needs to hear it. Tasha, we're definitely going to have you back again. I think that you're amazing. Did you have anything you wanted to say? One of the things about doing lives, we do this for you guys to get help, to heal, to hear voices of survivors, to see faces of survivors. You're looking at Tasha. Oh, she's so cute, right? Right. But you didn't see broken Tasha just 2 years ago. And so she's here to literally be a physical example to show you how far you can come. Before you say any last words, Tasha, excuse me, somebody asked a question. Do you find you are more likely to listen to your gut instincts now in regards to dating and meeting new people? I find that I question myself still at times when really I should trust myself more. That's a really great question, Lisa, and we want to answer it. So you want to go first, Tasha?
Yeah, so I know Lisa. I wanted to say that. Hi, Lisa. I love you.
Hi, Lisa. We love you, Lisa. Okay.
Also a beautiful, amazing survivor. I would say 100% yes. And it took me a long time to heal that, because he made me question myself. I didn't trust myself. But now it's like you just know it with every fiber of your body. And sometimes your body's going to know it before your brain tells you. But I really trust that, because your body, if you're feeling uneasy or you feel like you can't be yourself or you have to be mindful of that fear in any way, then that's a really good indicator that they're not a good person to be around. And I feel like I really trust my gut instinct now.
That's a really good question. And listen, we have a gut instinct for a reason. That's why we have it. It's to show us those things. So absolutely. And I think oftentimes, sometimes we look back, maybe our gut instinct was talking to us before and we didn't listen to it. So now we're paying more attention to it. Oh, this is what this thing is. And I think too, Lisa, starting to trust, because you said, I find that I still question myself at times when I really should try to trust myself. So I would say, like, trusting yourself with the small things, like trusting yourself to be a great parent or to be a great employee or to be a great daughter or be a great son. I remember my ex-husband, I couldn't fold the laundry right enough, or I didn't do it well enough. And I said, or I would leave this, and I can do these things. So I started to trust, I can pay my bills. I can take care of my children by myself. I can go to school. I can do these things. They were little things. I can get my oil changed. And I know it sounds really simple, but I know that there's survivors who are like, that was me. They told me I would never. And so I will just encourage you to trust yourself with the small things. And then small things become big things. And then you become fearless. You start to trust yourself more. And the truth of the matter is, they stripped away the trust that you should have had in yourself in the first place. So you're just gaining your trust back and more. So losing the court case because it twists everything. I have one child at home. It's hard to know what to do. You're so welcome. Listen, I know and understand court with an abuser. I know it. It is hell, y'all. The court systems are broken and they need to change, and they are not necessarily in the supportive vein for survivors. So I would encourage you always to try to have an advocate on your side. Use the parenting app to communicate. Gray Rock, do not hold full conversations with these abusers. They do not care. Their number one priority is not the children, it is you. So they want to pull your emotions and get you all drawn in conversation with them. That's all that is. So try to minimize that as much as possible. And I want you to remember that you are a good parent. Okay, you are caring for your child. Do not let anybody ever tell you different. Okay. Hey, Victoria, listen, you're coming on, right? Because we need to talk about the court systems and the impact that they have. And they can be devastating. You know how many abusers get out of jail and then go out and hurt the survivor? So a lot needs to change in that aspect. All right, you guys. Would love to help? Okay, Leanne, you can send a message. You got Tasha said she followed already. And collaborations, we're probably doing another one in January. So Tasha Ray, what would you say to someone that is listening? What you got for them before we leave?
I want to say so many things. I want to say that I appreciate you so much for listening. I truly believe that everything happens for a reason. So I really hope that if you're listening to this or watching this, that it helped inspire you, impacted you in some way. And I just want to let you know that you're not alone. Okay, I totally get it and understand. There's so many people who can understand you. You are so worthy and so beautiful and deserving, and you're here for a reason. And I just thank you so much. And I'm sending you all so much love. I'm so grateful to be here.
Thank you, Tasha. I love it. I know one thing we had, I want to share this, and I don't know if you said this when we did our live with the book. Was it you who said this? Don't let fear come first. I don't know who said it, but I saved this one because oftentimes as survivors, we lead with fear. Well, can I do this? I don't know if I can manage this by myself. They told me I couldn't. I wonder if I could ever. Don't let fear come first. Don't let that fear came first for so long in our life. Being with an abuser, we couldn't trust our basic God-given instincts. Begin to trust them now. Don't allow fear to take another breath, another moment, another time where you can celebrate and live. Okay. Tasha, you're a superhero, first of all. And I'm super duper proud of you. You literally multiple times when I was reading your story, just got chills. Like he literally tried to take you out because he knew the shining light that you are and that the world would need you. So you keep shining and I'm so excited to see everything that you do. All right. Thank you. We love you too. All right. We'll see you later. Tasha, don't go anywhere.
Okay.
Hey, Tiara. Oh my goodness. I miss you. Okay. Tiara. Okay. We'll see y'all later. All right. See ya.